Hello, I'm Linda Butler, the host of the Boldly Her Summit, and I am on a mission to empower accomplished women just like you to really step up and boldly design your authentic second half of life so you can really unleash your full potential and step in as CEO of your life after 50. And I am so excited to have the opportunity today to talk with Maria Leonard Olsen. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
So Maria is a practicing attorney in the Washington, D.C. area. She is also an author, wrote the book 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. She's a podcaster. There it is. Yeah. She's a journalist. She is a TEDx speaker, did a wonderful talk on turning life's challenges into a force for good. She has really helped many women in terms of this understanding of midlife and our journey, and is a frequent public speaker. So very excited to have you here, Maria.
Thank you so much, Linda.
And this summit is all about authenticity and really finding those ways to reconnect to yourself, particularly for women over 50, professional women over 50. So you really have a fascinating story. Do you want to give us a little bit about your own journey at midlife and some of the things that you started to lean into at midlife?
Sure. My story, I wish I could do it over, but I can't. So I'll tell you what happened. At age 50, I got sober from alcoholism. I became an empty nester. I got divorced. And I was living alone for the first time in my life. I know that sounds strange. When I realized that, I thought to myself, could that really be true? But yes, it is. I went from living with my family till age 18, went to college, and I had roommates or my husband for the rest of the time. And so at age 50, when my children were teenagers and they started pushing me away, which was developmentally appropriate, I kind of broke. And I had taken essentially 15 years off from practicing law. I had had a really great career. I was a political appointee in the Clinton administration. I worked at one of the biggest law firms in Washington, D.C. as a commercial litigator. But when I had children, I went part-time. And when I had my second child, I quit altogether because I wanted to be the best mother that I could be. And we all have childhood baggage. And my baggage includes being a latchkey kid in the 70s. And I didn't want that for my children. So I quit my law job. I did pro bono legal work during my 15 years as an at home mom. But then when they started pushing me away, I had put all my eggs in the motherhood basket, it felt like. And the dividends were not that great at that time. And so I suffered a bit of an identity crisis at 49, and I started drinking way in excess. And my then husband gave me an ultimatum to go to AA or get out. And so I did go to AA, and I found a new way of living. I am a big fan of the 12-step programs, including AA, Al-Anon, CODA, all of them, because they are, for me, a roadmap for living that I felt that I lacked. Although I achieved professional success in my private life, I was really adrift. And especially because I felt a sense of rejection from my children, which was fear-based, ego-driven. I just wanted them to still need me, and they didn't need me in the way that they had. And so I, in my 50th year, embarked on a journey of self-discovery. I decided for my 50th birthday, I would try 50 new things to determine how I wanted to live the next chapter of my life. And yes, I'm an extrovert. I'm a person who doesn't require a lot of sleep. I do a lot of things that most people maybe wouldn't do. But each of these things taught me something about how I wanted to design my next chapter. And the book carried a lot of resonance for many people, not just women in midlife. My daughter's friend from high school came to a talk I did in Denver, and she decided at age 20 something to try 5 new things to change her life, because making no changes in one's life is a choice, but it's not always a good one. In fact, it's usually never a good one to settle for the gray safety that sameness promises, which is a line that I like to repeat from a famous Irish poet, John O'Donoghue, because it really struck me that no one has to settle for their current life circumstances. So I pulled myself together, redesigned a life for myself. And although I make primarily a living as a lawyer, my passion project is helping any woman who wants the help change their lives and find out who they really are, which I do via my podcast, my writing. I write a lot of articles for outlets primarily designed for women in midlife, public speaking, my TED Talk. I'm doing another TEDx talk, hopefully. So keep your fingers crossed for that. I have 4 manuscripts that I'm writing and one that's being shopped. So someday I hope that that can be my full-time endeavor. I'm 60 now. I'm writing the book 60 After 60 because
Mm,
I never want to stop growing and learning. And I hope that someone listening today might be inspired to make a change. And I suspect with all the wonderful speakers you've amassed, Linda, and the work that you do, that that will happen.
lovely. Yes. And you did some amazing things in your, your 50 things. I'm really excited to hear what you do at 60 to top that or to add to your list. But what do you think were the biggest takeaways that you had? Because that was a pretty big list of things that you accomplished of those 50 things. And maybe not all of us have the bandwidth for that. But what were takeaways that you could share that other women, if they're really seriously considering, how do I kind of reconnect to myself? What takeaways would you share with us?
Well, many of the things in the book uh, include lifestyle changes. Like I incorporated a meditation practice that I still do 10 years later, because being present, fully present, is something that's a challenge for me. And yet it really increases my life satisfaction to try to remain present. And I do that primarily by focusing on my breath. Because when I am fully present, I can't be regretting the past or fretting about the future. I can concentrate on what is before me. And so that was a very significant lifestyle change I made in my 50th year that is carried through to today. One of the things that I did that probably no one listening would want to do, but they could do something similar, is I sold most of my belongings, put the rest in storage, and I did a volunteer vacation for me, which was high in the Himalayas in Nepal, 8 hours from the closest road. It was a small village which lacked running water or electricity. And it was set in the grandeur of the Himalayas. And while nobody has to do anything that dramatic, what it did for me is it helped infuse my life with an attitude of gratitude. In that, in the developed world, in the US, where probably most of your listeners will be, I took many things for granted. For instance, even if I were homeless, I could get medical care in the US. I know that I'm going to eat something today. And some of my students at the school in which I volunteered, they didn't know if they were going to eat anything that day. And some of the villagers took me into their homes and served me tea. And I was blown away by the level of happiness they had, how they took nothing for granted. And then when I came back to the US, I was having dinner in a casual restaurant and I was in the ladies' room and I just was strangely perceived because I said, wow, paper towel. It smells so good in here. It's so clean. And the bathroom quickly emptied because that sounds crazy in this country. But I don't take paper towels for granted anymore, or warm water, or flushing toilets, because I lived somewhere where that is a luxury. And
Mm,
so, if anyone can do some volunteer work that would help them infuse their own lives with an attitude of gratitude, it changes everything.
Mm, I love that. And in some ways, it's almost like going back to the basics, isn't it? The basic needs that you have, and just the gratitude that you may have a roof over your heads, or you have a meal coming, to your point, and just really taking that time to reflect on the gratitude that's in your life.
Or
Yeah,
that
that.
walk or see. I mean, how many of us have friends who have to have eye surgery or hip surgery, or are caring for our aging parents who, or ourselves? I have plenty of friends at age 60 who have significant diagnoses that are altering the way they live their lives. And while I am still ambulatory, I'm going to drink fully from the cup of life. I am leaving for Istanbul in 2 weeks because I've always wanted to see that city. To walk in one city across a bridge from Europe to Asia, that is on my bucket list. And because I have saved money and I can do it, I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to be killed by a car accident today or be diagnosed with heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the US. I have high blood pressure. I am lucky enough to have medical care where I can be medicated to keep that under control, but I no longer take anything for granted, or at least I try not to.
Mm, mm. That's yeah, I think that's so profound, right? That you think about life in that way. And what is it, do you think, about midlife that takes us to this place of just reflection? It's almost maybe it's the aging process. I'm not sure what it is, but I know when I was going through my own journey, and I'm still in my journey. You never finish, right? You're always still on your journey, but there was a time where I felt very alone, like, what's wrong with me? But it seems like this is part of our natural human process. But do you see that as well, that many women experience this? And one of the things I love about formats like this, and your experiences, is this willingness to share and be open and vulnerable, so that other women can say, oh, maybe my story's not exactly the same, but I see something in you that I'm also feeling. And it's this ability to share. Is that why you decided to write the book? Was that one of the reasons for that, sharing your story?
Absolutely. I felt very much alone for most of my life. We've talked offline that I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, of rape, and I didn't tell anyone about this. I was even assaulted by a doctor, and I didn't tell anyone. I had a lot of shame around it. I thought somehow it was my fault, but I was sexually abused as a child. It's not my fault. It took me decades to talk about it. I thought I was a freak. I didn't want anyone to know. And when I turned 50 or in midlife, I did research, and 1 in 4 American women will have been sexually assaulted in their lifetime. My story is not that unusual. I actually went to a rehab for women who had been sexually abused as children. And I go to retreats now, and I do public speaking on the topic. I spoke at the National March to End Rape Culture in Washington, D.C. And when I told my story on a national stage, I was flooded with calls, with women who approached me after I left the dais and said, I can't believe you said that out loud. And I said, honey, I didn't say honey. I said, you are not alone. And if you want to talk to me about this, here's my number. Because I spent so much time, and it was like holding a beach ball underwater. The trauma affected every aspect of my life, and I could hold it down and pretend it didn't happen. But if I wasn't vigilant, it would pop up and affect the way I perceived the world, the way I responded to the world. I was sort of reactive when I was triggered. I was very reactive. Who am I kidding? And I no longer do that because secrets for me kept me sick. It kept me small. It kept me people pleasing when I didn't really have to. And I no longer do that. It is a gift of aging, that life has knocked us down a few times, generally speaking. we realize that we've lived more of our lives than we have ahead of us. And we tend to have less time for BSing, for I personally surround myself with people who bring out the best in me. I don't have time because I'm acutely aware that I could get a diagnosis. I do have some health problems. I have lost a lot of friends to diseases and alcoholism, and I'm not wasting any more time. So I think midlife is generally a time of reflection, of dropping the rocks that no longer serve us, of seeking out like minded people, of sort of pruning our lives from things that no longer are good for us. And we generally, this is a sweet spot I have seen where our child caring responsibilities diminish. Hopefully, our parents don't need us full time to help them with aging issues. And maybe, well, for most of us, we have saved some money. We know who we are. We can try things on our bucket lists. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm encouraging other women to do. And that's what you do, Linda.
And I think, a key to a lot of this too is this concept of a growth mindset of, sometimes I think too about just our longevity. To your point, we don't always know how long we're going to have, but what if, my grandmother passed at the age of 95. So I'm in my mid 50s. So I might have 40 years ahead of me. So how am I going to live that? And how do I make the most of that time that I have? I mean, these are the profound questions I think we really start to ask ourselves at midlife. How do you incorporate this growth mindset? What are ways I think that women could perhaps tap into that more at this phase? Any tips on that?
Well, technology is both a blessing and a curse. I believe that we as women in midlife are digital immigrants, where if we have children, they're digital natives. This comes very easy to them. But I have mastered my iPhone. And so I keep a running list on my notes function on my iPhone, and Androids have it too, where I continually write down things I want to try, things I'm interested in, and I prune the list. Sometimes things fall off the list, but I'm always, when I have free time, thinking about how do I want to use my time? Because time is the one thing you can't buy. It is maybe our most precious thing, time and health. And so I'm very intentional about how I spend my time. I don't watch a lot of TV, although TV is fun and I try to keep abreast of things. My son is an actor, so I do watch some TV, but I am so aware of the expenditure of my time and how I want to use it. And for me, experiences and relationships are much more important than material things. And so I sell most of my designer things from my previous life. And if I if I do buy things, which I do when I travel, I try to buy some small thing to remind myself of an experience. For every one thing I bring into my life, I donate, sell, or give away two things because I don't want to have a lot of things anymore. This is my own brand of minimalism. So to answer your question, growth mindset. I keep a list of things I want to try. I'm intentional about how I spend every day. I surround myself with people who encourage me, who also have growth mindsets, because there's something called a negativity bias, and take on the characteristics of the five people with whom we spend the most time. So I used to spend a lot of time with people who drank a lot, and that increased my drinking. If I hang out with people who aren't interested in nutrition, I generally don't eat as well, things that fuel my body. So being intentional probably is my number one tip. Take inventory of how you're spending your time. Think about how the things you want to do with your life and what you're doing with your life. Maybe take an inventory of how you spend a day and maybe make some changes around how you spend your day. I start my day with a gratitude list, and sometimes I write it down. I do journal. Sometimes, if I'm too busy, honestly, I just say a silent prayer of 5 things for which I am grateful. And it can range from the profound to the prosaic. It can be simply that I can walk, I can see, I have glasses so that I can read, and I can't read without glasses anymore. I am educated. I feel good today. It's sunny, anything. And that sets the frame of for my day. So those are a few things that help me nurture a growth mindset.
Love that. Yeah, I think those are wise words. Yes. And maybe a sort of final question for you, but how would you, this summit is about authenticity, or creating that, or finding a way to become your most authentic self. How would you define living an authentic life? How is there a way that you define that?
Sure. Sure. For me, I had to drop the rock of constant people pleasing. I had to really reflect on who I am and who I want to be, because I want to continually evolve into the best version of myself. And that's one of the reasons I selfishly started a podcast called Becoming Your Best Version, in which I interview women every week on what they do to become their best version. Because we women at midlife, we have lived some life. We have suffered some setbacks. No one goes through life unscathed. And so I like to hear about how people dealt with challenges in their lives so that I can learn. Because when I believe that when I stop learning and growing, I hasten my demise, my dying. I want to keep my neurons firing in my brain. I try to learn something new every day, many new things every day. I frequently put on podcasts or TED Talks or YouTube videos while I get dressed in the morning for my favorite people, or TED Talks just generally on a subject that I want to learn about. And we have a wealth of ways to learn new things now with the internet. And with so many things, it was a gift, in my opinion, of the pandemic that so many things are online, like this summit. We can keep learning every day when we take walks. We can put on a podcast or listen to this summit. We can keep expanding our minds and our perspectives until the day we die. And that's what I intend to do. So now I've forgotten your exact question, but hopefully I answered it.
It was, yeah, I was asking how you live that authentic life, and I think
Oh, so
I
one
think your
last
takeaway was growth, right?
growth.
Continue to learn.
One last thought about that. I
Yeah.
heard Jamie Lee Curtis speak on the Today Show recently, and she said, I no longer people please, and people are not pleased. And that was profound because I spent most of my life being a people pleaser. And now, while I have to do it in court or with clients, I don't have to do that in my personal life. And my mantra for 2024 is if this is too much energy, please go find less, because I don't have time to people please. I do have time, but I no longer want to people please. I want to please me. I want to drop the rocks of self-judgment and self-hatred for me, for when I think about regrets and things that I wish I had done differently in my life. I have a pretty significant bat that I use to hit myself figuratively over the head over and over again. And my Al Anon sponsor tells me almost every time I talk to her, put the bat down. And one more hint for your listeners is, while Al Anon was started as a fellowship for people who are in relationship with alcoholics and addicts, it has grown to include people who are in dysfunctional relationships. And I wager that every single listener has at least one of those, a dysfunctional relationship in their lives. So check out Al Anon. Many, many meetings are online. And the general wisdom is try a few of them until you find a group with which you feel comfortable. You never have to identify who you are. You can do it on your phone. to keep your anonymity if you like. And I recommend women's Al-Anon groups.
Love that. Yeah, and that's a great tip, because it is all about, at this stage, I think, how do you want to live your best second chapter? And so some of that is dealing with the rocks, letting the rocks go. I love that analogy. Just, yeah, so that you can feel freer, that you can step into that next level. So, oh my goodness, so many great words of wisdom today. Thank you so much, Maria. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here and sharing your stories. I think it's just so important that we hear from one another as women on our own journeys, so that we can support one another. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me and for doing this, because women have a lot of wisdom, and the more we support each other, the better off the world will be, really.
Absolutely. Totally believe that. Yes. And you are offering a free gift. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, although I've written 7 books, this is my most popular book, 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. And friends have told me that they use it in many ways and consult it. And my TED Talk is a summary of the book, if you'd like to listen to that. And please hit the like button, because that helps move it up in the visibility algorithm. And I believe it has a capacity to make women, people, not feel so alone in their life challenges. In any event, that book I will inscribe to you or to someone you love who could use a lift in life, and send it to any US address for those who sign up for my mailing list by going to my website during this summit. You will be entered into a drawing, and one lucky winner will get this book sent to them with a message from me or to someone that they care about. So sign up, and Linda or I will choose the lucky winner.
Okay, lovely. Yeah, thank you so much for offering that and sharing that. So, so thank you for tuning in, and just wanted to remind you that we will have all of the links for Maria, how to get a hold of her, where you can find her in terms of social media, website, and her lovely gift. All of those things are listed in the email that you received today below her video link. And just a reminder as well, if you're interested, you can purchase a VIP pass, which will give you unlimited access to Maria and the rest of our speakers' information, so you can rewatch as many times as you would like by having access to this library. So that link is below in the email you received today as well. So thank you once again, Maria.
Thank you so much, Linda, for all the light you put into the world.